Due to his skin tone, this black man was asked to leave the establishment. It's difficult to believe what he did next. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. Who allowed this repugnant being inside my shop? Thompson growled. The shop turned, and everyone saw a black man at the counter who appeared to be illiterate. Simon turned to face the man who had just screamed, looking similarly shocked. Using the little pennies he had managed to gather the day before, he had strolled inside the store to buy himself a snack. One of the cheapest things the store had was bread, so that's what he planned to get. Simon looked confused as the manager, filled with rage, thundered at him. "Did you come here to steal something? You want to stir up problems and drive away consumers, correct?" A flash of anger lit up Thompson's irises as he screamed. With an angry shake of his head, Simon quickly flashed him the coin he was holding. He clarified that he didn't intend to cause any issue at all and had simply gone to purchase bread to eat. Thompson, though, was adamant. Insults were hurled in his direction, as he said that the only thing individuals who resembled him wanted was to steal and stir up trouble wherever they went. His expression disgusted as he hurled more racist epithets in Simon's direction. Simon scowled at that point. Although he was fully aware of his appearance, this man had no right to treat him so crudely. He was a sentient human being with emotions. In response, he told the man that he was wrong to use such words with him and that he was incredibly incorrect. He maintained that he was a fellow human being and that his desire to purchase a loaf of bread from the store did not constitute a transgression. Anger made Mr. Thompson's ears crimson. Simon was told to leave the store by him, gesturing to the security officer stationed at the door. "Get him out of my shop right now!" He spit out, "I don't want such trash in here." Simon found the man hard to believe. With a dejected gesture, he lifted his arms and declared he would go alone. But he did give Thompson a piece of his mind before he departed. He informed him that, despite his position of authority, he had no right to make snap judgments about individuals based only on how they looked. He emphasized to him that he should always be kind to others, as he may suddenly lose everything he held. The same individuals he had denigrated and degraded would be at his mercy when that occurred. He was ashamed and degraded as he left the business. He was starving and couldn't even find the bread he had come for. Before he knew it, he heard others sprinting after him from the store. Startled, he turned to find the manager and security guards right there. Simon was violently grabbed by the security guys, and before he could blink, they had held him down. They attacked him, beating and kicking him before he could say anything. They took the old bag he was carrying with force and threw its contents on the ground. "Have you taken the watch?" Thompson scoffed and said. "You disgusting thief, I knew you came into the store to steal." "I told you I just came in here to buy bread," Simon shot out aggressively. "Let me go. I didn't steal anything." Simon objected, but Thompson told the guards to inspect his suitcase extensively. A pricey wristwatch was among the things that fell out, along with a toothbrush, some socks, a napkin, a pack of cards, and a few articles of clothing. Everyone's eyes opened when they saw it. Simon looked at the watch in shock, wondering how it had gotten into his backpack. How did he get hold of it when it didn't belong to him? His gaze was confused as he looked about, attempting to interpret the circumstances. "There it is!" cried Thompson, pointing to the watch. "This man came to take something as I informed you. You'll be sorry you did this at all." Despite being homeless and impoverished, Simon refuted the charge, saying he would never consider stealing. He pleaded with them to trust him, telling them that he was innocent and that the watch in his suitcase had to have been dropped by someone in order to frame him. Thompson swiftly reported the robbery at the business to the police, thus his pleadings were ignored. Simon received a disgusted glare from him as he instructed the guards to pull him back to the store until the police could come. Simon insisted on his innocence and kept on appealing. Thompson gave the police an explanation of the circumstances upon their arrival, stressing how they had discovered the pricey watch in Simon's luggage. As Simon sobbed and pleaded not to be detained, an officer put handcuffs on his hands. Simon insisted that they were making a grave error and encouraged them to do a thorough inquiry. As Simon sobbed and begged the cops to stop, all that could be done was gaze at him. While some felt sorry for him, they could all see that the watch was in his luggage, which put him in a very awkward position. After Simon was pushed into the back of the squad car, they took off. Thompson's contented smile was visible to him. He was in shock at how unfortunate he had become for only wanting to purchase bread. His cell at the police station was designated as a holding area. He was asked by an officer if he wanted to phone his family or a lawyer. He gave a nod of his head. It was only Simon in the town. He thought back on his life throughout the previous year as he slept in the chilly cell that evening. It wasn't always that he was destitute. Actually, he had owned and operated a very prosperous little business in the town. Unfortunately, unanticipated events outside his control were the reason the firm collapsed, resulting in his homelessness. He began to regret walking into the store that evening since he was depressed. An enormous guy with a menacing visage approached him, one of his cellmates. He looked at Simon and then chuckled. Simon wondered what he wanted as he stared up at him. "What brought him to prison?" the guy questioned him. Simon explained to him that there was miscommunication. Remaining steadfast in his assertion, he recounted the events that occurred at the shop that night. Simon was told to give up hope that he would be released from prison soon by the guy, who laughed at him as if he were insane. He said stuff about his skin tone and how people of his kind tended to do things they were accused of most of the time. "You will not be believed by anyone. You certainly did it, though." "You appear to be a robber," he chuckled. Simon disputed this, assuring him he was innocent and that he was in error. "Never make hasty decisions about someone you don't know." Simon shouted, "That's not a smart thing to do." The man was wounded by his comments, which he took as an insult right away. "What are you trying to say? Do you intend to label me as an idiot with you and your kind?" The man abruptly reached down to seize Simon by the collar out of rage. Simon was startled by the abrupt movement and didn't realize what was happening until the man's fist struck his face. The big man began beating him viciously, pushing and kicking him. Simon was shouted at by him and he begged him not to offend him. A few minutes thereafter, the cell door opened and 2 policemen hurried inside to remove the guy from Simon. After assisting him in leaving the jail, a second officer examined his body for injuries. After a nurse attended to his wounds, he was washed up and dressed, and then an officer led him to another cell where he was kept overnight. Simon was astounded by how unlucky he had been in the last few hours. He'd been detained, assaulted twice, and charged with stealing. He considered his life to be a complete wreck. Simon was taken aback when a warden revealed that he was going to be released from his cell 2 days later. He went outside to see Thompson, the manager who had initially assigned him to the position. Thompson informed him that they had observed someone else placing the watch in Simon's bag when they examined the CCTV footage. Most likely, he wanted to return the watch to him at a later time. As he was being bailed out, the man added, "I decided to be kind enough to release you." The manager hurried over to Simon once he was released from jail, telling him not to ever show his face in the store again and expressing the hope that Simon had learnt his lesson. "It is unfortunate that the police did not accept your account. Are you aware of the reason since you're homeless and black?" he screamed. The manager questioned, "How did you feel staying in a cell for a crime you didn't commit?" Then he laughed callously and turned to go. Simon was at a loss for words with the callous management. He lacked the strength to protect himself either. All he did was stifle his emotions and turn to go. Many hours later, he was in his regular location, just a short distance from the shop. He was penniless and had scarcely eaten anything. He really wanted to take a shower and was famished. Above all, he yearned to spend hours lying on a cozy bed and dozing off. Simon was aware that those were just illusions. He quickly located the cover and dropped into the chilly ground. He was asleep in a matter of minutes, snoring softly. He slept for an hour, then all of a sudden got up and said, "I'm innocent. I'm not guilty. Give up beating me." His nightmare over the previous 3 days had been horrific, a reflection of his unpleasant experiences. Simon knew that trying to go back to sleep would just result in more nightmares, so there was no point. In addition, he was ravenously hungry, so he grabbed his suitcase and headed to where he usually begs. 30 minutes later, Simon was approached by Laura, a pleasant young woman who always made sure to place a few cents in his bowl and welcome him every time she passed. She saw the swell in his eyes, the melancholy emotion in him. Asking Simon why he was sitting in the glaring light, she knelt down. Simon broke down in tears, claiming that the agony in his heart burnt hotter than the sun. Then he started telling the story of what had occurred to him throughout the previous 2 days. He was upset with Thompson and said that justice needed to be done. He had an idea when he suddenly realized Laura was a journalist. He said he needed her assistance. In order to atone for the prejudice and humiliation he had experienced, he desired justice. He didn't want anyone to experience what he had. Journalist Laura had a track record of bringing attention to social injustice. Laura heard Simon's story, agreed that justice should be done, and promised to aid Simon. Simon informed her he already had a plan and thanked her. The idea was to let Simon enter the store so that the camera could record Thompson's actions toward him. They intended to make him public and demonstrate to everyone how he handled the underprivileged and black clients. Simon plucked up the guts to enter the shop once more. A covert camera was concealed in his jacket pocket. Asking to purchase bread, he headed to the counter. Thompson appeared shortly after he entered and yelled at him to leave the business. "I believe I forewarned you to avoid entering here once more. Would you rather live out the rest of your days behind bars? Have you not gotten the message yet?" He screamed out of rage. He approached Simon and took the bread he had bought from him. "We don't sell to black people who are homeless here." Then he bellowed, "Where is his dirty money?" at the attendant as he turned to face her. With shaking hands, the attendant gave him a few cents. Thompson took the coins from her, dashed in the direction of the door, and threw the coins out. "Go get your filthy money from over there," he shouted. "Now get out before I call the cops." Simon apologized for interfering with the store's business operations and assured Thompson he was going to depart on his own before Thompson could call the police. Simon grinned happily as he walked out of the shop, knowing that he had achieved his goal. Simon brought the camera over to Laura, and the two of them viewed the vile footage. They were pleased with the video and relieved that they had managed to defeat the man at last. Laura uploaded the footage to the internet as soon as she got home that evening. The video quickly became popular, with millions of views and interactions. Although the public's wrath and resentment toward Thompson and the business were evident, this was only the start of the events that would ultimately lead to Thompson's demise. The next day, Simon organized a neighborhood demonstration because he was committed to raising his voice against racism and injustice. And what do you know? Hundreds of others came to join him. They gathered in staged protests both inside and outside the store, calling for Simon and the other victims of Thompson's brutality to receive justice. They demanded that the business be the first to stop engaging in discriminatory activities within the neighborhood. Days passed during this demonstration, and many customers stopped coming to the business. The store owner was furious since they saw a big decline in sales and felt a lot of pressure from the public. He made the decision to look into Thompson internally. He was astonished to learn throughout the inquiry that there had been other complaints against Thompson in addition to the video showing the cruel treatment of Simon. Thompson was sacked by the owner right away. In addition, he publicly apologized to Simon and everyone else who had been subjected to unjust treatment by the management. As the owner of the company, he declared that his new objective was to put the welfare of his clients first and make sure that all employees received diversity and inclusion training. Everyone was pleased with the justice that was carried out, and the community applauded him for his prudent and morally correct behavior. Simon's prior status as a business owner was discovered throughout the examination. The business owner chose to provide an employment and housing offer to Simon because she felt guilty and responsible for him. He told him he was the ideal candidate for the position and extended an offer to take over as shop manager. Startled by the proposal, Simon gladly took it. Laura and the others who supported him were pleased for him and rejoiced in his new role. He took up residence in the business owner's temporary quarters. He shed a few tears as he surveyed the flat. Now that he was off the streets, he felt glad. He was committed to save enough cash to buy a property of his own and eventually launch a company. Simon had a strong work ethic and prior business expertise, making him a useful employee. The store owner saw an improvement in the business and was pleased with his hard work. Thompson had a shift of viewpoint while attending a human rights program that he was required to attend. he eventually realized that the folks he had previously detested were genuinely kind and didn't want any difficulty. He eventually realized his errors from the past and felt bad about his treatment of black people. He realized that morality was independent of race or social standing. Thompson stepped in and demanded to see Simon 6 months after he was dismissed from the store. Simon consented to speak with him even though everyone in the store was shocked to see him there. Thompson really apologized and conveyed his sorrow for putting Simon through so much stress and shame. Simon just gave him a hug and a grin. He informed Thompson that he was glad he had changed his mind and that he had already forgiven him. That was the beginning of two men's wonderful relationship. Over time, Simon, who was now thriving, was asked to speak at a significant community gathering, sharing his tale of overcoming homelessness and achieving stability. He urged the people to keep up the battle for justice and thanked them for their unflinching support. In addition, he expressed gratitude to Laura, the journalist who had been instrumental in restoring justice to the town. As he concluded his remarks, the audience applauded him. People approached him to offer their congratulations and commendation on his metamorphosis. A few expressed to him how his experience had inspired and affected them. After working hard for a few years, Simon was able to accumulate enough money to move into his own apartment. He also made the momentous choice to launch a company that would resemble the first one he had managed. After realizing his faults from the previous attempt, he operated the company with extreme caution and devotion. People in his neighborhood looked up to him as a role model, and everyone he encountered had nothing but good things to say about the diligent guy. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.